Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our third panel discussion of the day. My name's Nick. I'm the BBC's Asia business correspondent. I'm normally based out of Singapore. We have our hub there. The topic of today's panel discussion is green financing and carbon markets. We've got a really great panel. I think they bring a real range of perspectives. They represent various concerns, also different steps along the chain of carbon markets, shall we say, as they relate today. So I'm just going to quickly introduce them. Here to my left, we have Alexandra Askandar. She is the Vice President Director of Bank Mandiri. Thank you very much for being here. Next to Alexandra, we have Natalia Rialucky. She's CEO of Fairatmos. Nice to have you here, Natalia. We've got next to her, just along, we've got Jeffrey Chateller, CEO of Forest Carbon. Now, you guys are all based here in Indonesia, Jakarta, obviously. But we're very pleased to have from Beijing, Dr. Ma Jun. Dr. Ma Jun is the Director of the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs. Thank you very much. We'll just give them a quick round of applause. Thank you for all being here. Now, in terms of green financing, I think carbon markets is one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, sort of way of getting a path towards net zero without messing up the economy, right? I mean, I think that's basically the very, very blunt way of putting it. It's a really nice, simple idea, the idea that polluting companies and governments can literally pay for carbon credits to compensate for their emissions. And on the other hand, those organizations, companies, governments that are doing good things for the environment, they sell the carbon credits as a reward. So it's like a carrot and stick approach, right? And then the people in the middle investing, buying, trading, and as everyone gets more and more invested in net zero, these carbon credits increase in value, everyone gets rich. Our targets are all met, problem solved. Well, I'm sure our panel is going to tell me, Nick, no, that's a really simplistic way of looking at it. There are still concerns. No system is perfect. In some areas, there's no system at all. And there's also controversies around the carbon market in and of itself. But look, I'm going to start with you, Alexandra, because I want you to tell us a little bit about your clients in the financial sector at Bank Mandiri. How much enthusiasm are you seeing from them? Do they want to be buying and investing in carbon credits?
Okay, thank you, Nick, for the questions. But before I answer the question, I would like to greet all the participants joining us this afternoon. Okay. As the largest wholesale banking in Indonesia, we manage a huge loan portfolio from various industry sectors. And of course, there are high-emitting business as well as more greener sectors, like renewable energy, clean transportation, and so on. And we've seen a positive, great enthusiasm for the carbon market, although currently it's not applied yet in Indonesia. We don't have the carbon exchange yet, but it has been quite extensive and intensive, I could say, discussion to prepare for this carbon exchange. And we, even us, as the bank, we see that our role can be also positive in this carbon exchange. Why? Because we can connect. We can be the intermediary to connect between the seller and the purchaser of the buyer of this carbon credit.
Yeah. So as and when this becomes an option, there is the enthusiasm there. There is the market.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Natalia, I'm going to ask you about Fairatmos. Now, I'm just going to give a brief description of what you guys do. Correct me if I'm wrong here. So you have a digital tool. It helps farmers if they want to become carbon certified.
Yeah.
Right? So farmers can actually prove that what they're doing isn't polluted, and then they can sell carbon credits off the back of that. We were talking the other day, and you said that what you wanted to do, this idea of returning confidence to carbon markets, that's part of what you're looking to do. Does that suggest then that at the moment there isn't enough confidence in carbon markets?
That's correct. Maybe I try to decipher the two problems in the market. The first one is we don't have enough quality carbon credit projects. In Indonesia itself, we have big potential, but why don't we have 100 projects, 200 projects? So we really want to make it very easy to really assess any given plot of land. Indonesia has more than 90 million hectares of forestry, 12 million hectares of agriculture forestry as well. Why don't they also can get a bit of carbon credit if they switch the way they plant to be more carbon neutral, to be more low emission, right? So one, we don't have enough of those projects. Number two, just recently, earlier this year, there has been a huge criticism in the carbon offset world, which in my view, I think it's good for the industry because we keep on checking with each other, right? So there has been a lot of projects that were questioned whether it is actually protecting the environment or not, because some project was credited, but apparently it has been converted into commercial use. Now, the second problem that we're facing is a lot of buyers become skeptical. A lot of large corporations in Europe, who becomes one of the bigger market for carbon credits, actually pull out entirely, divesting from their investment in carbon credits because of this criticism. In my view, and in what Fairatmos does, carbon offset still becomes one of the most accessible way for people to obtain economic value out of conservation. So why don't we return the confidence of the market to carbon offset by providing more transparency? That if you are paying a carbon credit to plant that tree somewhere in Cilacap, for example, as one of our projects, the tree is there. We can see in one screen, the tree is there. It's like 10 centimeters right now. We give you a calculation for a 10 centimeters mangrove with rhizoporous species, for example, how much carbon does it actually sequester? So we really believe that previously there wasn't technology, but now with new technology, we can actually see the same thing, so then it's no longer a bilateral transaction that believes in hopes and papers, but actually in real image, satellite image that can tell you, yes, you are conserving, yes, you are worth of that economic value, because this economic value goes hand in hand with preserving the planet.
Yeah, yeah. So seeing is believing.
Yes, it is true.
Essentially. Jeffrey, I wanted to ask you whether you saw that same kind of skepticism. I mean, Fairatmos has been going for about a year.
Yes.
Right? You've been in this carbon credits game a little bit longer. I mean, how do you deal with skepticism? Is this something that you see on a regular basis? I'm sure things have changed quite a lot, right? I mean, the value of a carbon credit's gone up a lot in the last few years. You know, how do you deal when people say, well, what's all this about? How do you persuade people?
Yeah, thank you. I think one thing to think about is that in ASEAN, we've had a really vibrant carbon market being developed over the last decade. When Indonesia hosted the Bali climate negotiations, it really launched the development of the nature-based solutions sector. We saw a proliferation of projects. And so within ASEAN, there's already around 1.5 million hectares of forest that's being protected and restored using international standards that are trusted by the market. And these projects, to date, have produced over 125 million credits that have been transacted with major Fortune 500 companies. On the renewable energy side, there's roughly 54 projects producing, on average, 7 million credits a year. So this market has been here, and it's been building over time. And so in terms of trust of the market, it's important that you use methodologies that are trusted, that are transparent, and can be checked by third-party auditors. And so that's really where I think the market needs to go. On the technology side, we've seen with space technology, the proliferation of satellites, that it's much easier to check on the activities of these projects. Many years ago, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars for one single satellite image. Now these images are free, and anyone can download them. And so this is allowing citizen scientists to come in and really ensure the integrity of these projects. But with anything, I think these methodologies can be improved, they can be worked on, and we can engage with the scientific community to build more trust in the sector.
Yeah, yeah. Marjin, I wanted to get the China perspective. I don't want to be that guy that says this is all well and good, but unless we get China on board, but I am going to be that guy. I'm going to ask, what is the state of the carbon market in China at the moment? Are you satisfied?
Yeah, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be invited to this forum. Very, very impressed. And talking about carbon market, China launched the carbon market after the government made carbon peak and neutrality pledge in September 2020. So 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, we launched the carbon market. And so it's considered to be one of the alternatives, one of the ways to do it. You either impose a carbon tax or you depend on the carbon trade market. So China chose this way of doing this. At the beginning, the plan was more ambitious, 8 industries and many other industries. But toward the beginning of that, we decided to go with only one industry, the thermal power industry. So bringing into more than 2,200 thermal power, the coal power plants, but they are really major emitters. The total volume put together is some 4.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And that's about more than 1/3 of the China's total carbon emission. And so making it one of the largest markets. Having said that, the price was not that, the transaction was not that vibrant, and the price remained to be rather low. It started from 40 RMB, but in more recent days, actually just from this August, the August that just passed, the trade volume increased to 13 million tons that month, and then the carbon price increase from 40 to 70. So it's on its way to go up, and more industries being considered to be integrated into this market. Iron, steel, cement, and non-ferrous metal like aluminium and others. Chemical and petrochemical would be more challenging. Talking about China's experience, probably it's relevant to the Indonesian market. Alexandra told me that you're going to launch your own market. I think it's relevant because in China we haven't picked it yet. We set the target 2030. So before you have a real cap, how to manage, how to construct a real effective carbon market, that's our challenge. And then we all talk about the integrity of the data, the quality of the project. In China, it's the same. The reason for us to start it with coal power is because this is the most straightforward. Mm-hmm. You send the sample of coal to the lab regularly, and then you come up with the emission factors and come up with your data. But when it comes to other industries, it's going to be a lot more complicated. For example, chemical and petrochemical. So that's our, some of our experience. And even with the coal power, we spent the first half of this year to try to review some of the fraudulent case, because it's really quite a big temptation for the third party to bow to the pressure of those who join the market cheat on their data. So it matters to millions of, hundreds of millions of yuan. So so that's another thing that we could learn, I think, from the Chinese market. But after 2 years, I think gradually China feel more confident that we're going to expand and allow more transaction, particularly, when in Europe, the CBAM, the carbon border adjustment tax is looming. So I think that could also help hasten China's efforts to develop our own market. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to come back down the line, actually. I'll go to you next, Jeffrey, if that's okay, because I want to talk a little bit about regulation and, the confusion, around regulation here in Indonesia. There was a bit of a pause on trading voluntary credits. Are you clear on the Indonesian government's approach to carbon credits? Is that something that you're clear on at the moment and you feel like everyone is?
To answer that question, over the past few years, we've seen new regulations coming out in Indonesia that clearly identify that there will be a carbon market and that trading will take place between B2B. We also may see transactions taking place between governments. And so the regulations indicate that the government wants to know more about this sector. They want to know how many credits are being produced, who's producing them, what type of standards they're using. And so I think it's a positive indicator that there's going to be more oversight on the sector. But as you mentioned, there are some challenges right now because the system isn't fully operational. But with recent regulations that have come out from the Financial Authority indicating that carbon exchanges will be up and running before the end of Q3 this year, those are really positive signs that the government is getting very much behind it. I think an interesting point is some of the participants in the carbon market in Indonesia are state-owned enterprises. So that's very much a signal that the government is supportive of what we're doing. And I think they can look also outside to other ASEAN countries. Cambodia is a good example where they've adopted the voluntary carbon market as their national strategy. And they understand that they have to create a product that buyers are willing to pay for. And in that situation, they're adopting international standards. So they're not trying to recreate the wheel. And as a result, they've protected, close to 1 million hectares. They've generated hundreds of millions of dollars for their country, and they're looking to expand that further. And so I think it's a good example for Indonesia to see and to look at and potentially emulate. And so I think that's the direction of where the market is going.
Do you agree with that, Natalia? That's the general direction towards a sort of a clearer approach.
Yeah, so I do think that it gives a lot of confidence that the statements and the direction about now that the regulation on carbon trading from the OJK is out, and then there's more regulation from the Ministry of Forestry that is setting up its own registry to put more provisions. I think one area that, if I may, need a little bit more nudge is on the climate financing side. So it's not enough to just allow how climate projects is being developed. What's the science behind how much carbon tons can one forest actually protect, right? But in order to do such activity requires a quite high capital expenditures. And we've been talking, and we would love to work more with a lot of banks as well as financing companies, but particularly also on the financing regulatory side within Indonesia on how we can incentivize more financing to climate projects because the nature is not a typical retail loan. It takes 2 years, or in the case of Darsono, it takes 15 years from the start of the project until you see your first dollar. Yeah. So it is quite a long time. And every time we ask, okay, when we pitch about, can you help us finance, We are currently helping to build 10 projects and raising almost 50 million US dollars in terms of capex to finance this project, right? Every time we ask, the question has always, the questions from funder has always been, how do I manage my risk? Is there any insurance about it, right? So how do I protect all this capex I put it up front? So I guess if the carbon projects regulation, the trading regulation is there, I think we're waiting for the financing regulation to really put more safeguards so that funders can be more comfortable, but also gives a bit more room for project developers to really have a bit of booster so that people who previously log, people who previously just know how to open palm oil plantation can see that there's also confidence and trust from the financial industry for them to convert what they do towards protecting and conserving. So we're hoping for that long tail of regulatory changes would happen and can boost more projects in the sector.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you for your pitch in a minute, but you mentioned finance and you mentioned banks, so I'm going to bring you in, Alexandra. I mean, the key thing is to get people on board, offering green portfolios, this sort of thing. How much success have you had in that so far? What kinds of things do you offer to your clients?
Okay. From my point of view, I think incentives as well as policy interventions are necessity if we want to see the transition to low carbon economy, sustainable economy. So, for example, I believe that a proper carbon pricing mechanism will be the main driver to create more green financing. Because everybody will be pushed to apply the green investment. So, in this case, Indonesia has not yet, we haven't applied the carbon tax yet, but we've seen a positive development. The authorities have piloted energy trading system in energy sector, for example. And the government also provided incentive in EV ecosystem, like relaxation on the VAT, and then relaxation on the domestic component, and also the relaxation on different type of policies. So I believe this incentive and the policies are the things that we need, and we can also adopt, like Jeffrey said, from what has been applied in international, especially in the region, from ASEAN countries. We see that Singapore, they have been successful. They have introduced the carbon tax in 2019, and now we've seen a large green investment in Singapore compared to other ASEAN countries.
Yeah.
So I think we will move forward into this direction. Indonesia will move forward into this direction.
Yeah. Thank you. You're a backer of the carbon tax, aren't you, Jeffrey? Just explain why, how that works.
Yeah, so a carbon tax can be a really good way to incentivize financial flows into activities that reduce emissions. And so, as Natalie was saying, right now, nature-based solutions, the primary funding source is venture capital, right? So traditional banks aren't willing to invest in these projects because there isn't enough price assurance on the credits. And so one way to help give more stability on pricing of carbon credits is to align it with a carbon tax. So for example, Singapore is about to increase its carbon tax from just under $4 to over $33 US in 2026. Now, if Singapore created a system similar to what Colombia has already done, where it set a carbon tax, and then it allowed companies, instead of paying that tax, to buy carbon offsets. It could really stimulate the entire market across ASEAN. Now, if we were able to get $33 a carbon credit from a nature-based solution project here in Indonesia, we could protect and restore the entire forestry estate, which is over 100 million hectares. So, the scale can be huge. And when we, add on the forests of Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, Malaysia, the opportunity is quite large. So Indonesia has a preliminary plan to roll out a carbon tax, and I think that could be a first step, for its domestic carbon market trading. So I see, really strong promise. I think these taxes indicate to the market where prices are going and bring more stability to the market.
Yeah. Margin, is that something you'd go along with as well?
Yeah, China is also going through all these methodologies. China stopped our own CCER, the China Carbon Emission Reduction Mechanism, a couple of years ago, due to the idea that we need to maintain the integrity, and we really need to get the methodology right and make it align with international standards. And now the Chinese Ministry of Environment have openly solicited the stakeholders to come up with their own proposals for this methodology for the first time, and China's own carbon emission reduction system will be restarted, hopefully this year. Yeah, so that will be the situation. Having said that, I think another thing that which is relevant is that in China, our green finance started longer time ago, when the countries really suffer from severe pollution problem, air and water problem. I landed the day before yesterday, and yesterday I checked our readings. We have a Blue Map app, and on that readings I can see the concentration of PM 2.5 here, and local people told me that it was just a normal day, but our annual average when we got started in Beijing, 2013, that was double that yesterday's readings. So it's 89.5, and the WHO standards was 10 at that time. So hundreds of millions exposed to this air pollution. And then on the water side, when our organization was set up 17 years ago, 28% of the monitored river sections reported worse than Category 5, meaning the water is running black, good for no use, exposed 300 million rural residents to health risks. So that was our situation. So in China, green finance is not just about trying to direct all this money to curb the carbon emission. It started by trying to direct the money to help with all this infrastructure and green infrastructure built, and of course add the pipe pollution reduction projects. And through all these years of efforts, some success have been achieved. In 10 years of time, Beijing's PM 2.5 dropped from nearly 90 to 30 last year. And on the water side, that 28% of black water proportion dropped to 1%, around 1% in just over the past 10 years. So it's quite achievement. And now, how do we, when we try to cut our carbon emission, how to synergize the carbon emission reduction with the local pollution control? Because if we want to further improve, because WHO just lowered its health standards to 5 when it comes to PM 2.5. If we want to further improve, we need more investment, but we better do that side by side with the by tackling the climate change. So how do we synergize carbon reduction with the local pollution control, expansion of green, and sustainable growth? I mean, that's the priority in China. Financial institutions have been motivated to try to do that. We as an NGO organization is trying to build the infrastructure, tracking the performance of some more than 10 million corporations operating in China with their production and emission, and then help those banks run through 1 million of them who want to borrow money, following our, in a environmental due diligence, following China's green banking policy, and develop digital solutions, digital accounting solutions, because we all want to lower the cost of all this green transition. The premium, if it is too high, then for a developing country, emerging market country, it will be a problem. So I think all this, I'm very excited to see all these efforts happening here in China. The renewable energy sector grow by the solar PV. Solar PV grow by 42% year on year in the first 7 months of this year. And then the e-vehicles penetration rate topped 25%. Every, 4 cars sold, one of them is an e-vehicle. Yesterday when I checked the street, it was still not like that. But so I think there are a lot of things that we can try to review and see whether there are synergy to work together.
Yeah, so it could be a huge potential avenue as a driver of growth in China, renewables. Natalia, I said I'd ask you for your pitch, because you are a startup. How do you go about persuading businesses, funds, VCs and stuff like that? How do you go about explaining to them that this is something worth investing in?
Yeah, so I think since we have a very short time, I think there's only one planet. 1 carbon ton of carbon dioxide captured in Indonesia is 1 carbon ton of dioxide captured on Earth that can save our future, right? And not only 1 planet, but also 1 global economic system. Fortunately or unfortunately, forest across the world is distributed quite unevenly, where Southeast Asia has most of the forest after Amazon. But then in order for us to value this forest potential, we need countries who has less of them to see and become the buyer of what is more available in this region. So we need to be able to find ways to help more people to create carbon projects to absorb, but also allow the finance to come and support all of these projects, so that not only that the planet is conserved, but also economic value for people who choose to do it is being priced at the fair value. So technology now allows us to do that. Technology now, like what Jeffrey also mentioned, that previously took 2 years could now be done in 2 seconds. So why don't we help each other to basically create more high quality projects for who knows however years that we have left in this planet. So yeah, maybe that's my pitch.
Good pitch. It's under 1 minute, I think.
Not half a minute, so efficient.
You practiced that one. We just heard a bit about the sort of green financial sector in China from Ma Jun there, and areas for improvement and development. What's the state of affairs here in Indonesia, and even more generally regionally, if you want to comment?
Okay, I would like to quote what Natalia said about the role of the financial institution, particularly the banks. So, recognizing the essential role of banks, we in Bank Mandiri, we would like to be the Indonesia sustainability champion. And how we see our role is not limited to how we create green financing, but how we can integrate the ESG, the sustainable, into our daily business, our operational activities, and more importantly, how we can also assist and help our client for their transition journey. And as of June 2023, our sustainable portfolio has reached to 15.9 billion US dollar, and part of it is the green financing portfolio. And among those green financing portfolio consists of renewable energy, clean transportation, sustainable agriculture, and many other green business. And LRT, if you are aware, which was just launched last week, is one of our green part of our green financing portfolio. And in Bank Mandiri, we also have a dedicated team, ESG unit. We just created last year. And with our financial expertise, we also give advisory to our client. So we provide services how they can issue sustainability-linked loan, green loan, social loan, as well as transition loan for various industry sectors like cement industry, and then mining contractors, and other industry sector. And to make sure that we have the liquidity to support our green financing, we also create an initiative on how we have green funding. So in Bank Mandiri, we issued green bond in, we issued sustainability bond in 2021, and the following year, we are the first bank who issued the ESG repo. And the total is quite huge. And this year, just a couple of months ago, we issued green bond in rupiah. The total is 5 trillion rupiah.
So there's appetite for that then, yeah. Very, very good. Okay, we've got 3 minutes. Jeffrey, I'm going to ask you a question and see if we can squeeze in one more for Margin. We'll see how we go.
All right.
Look, forests is your area. Currently, the carbon credits that are being issued represent a real fraction. We were talking about this the other day, right? Of Indonesia's total land mass of forests. How are you going to scale that up? How are you going to? We were talking about the danger of the carbon market being niche. How do you stop it being niche?
Yeah, so the sector has been a niche sector for the past, 10 years. And, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons for that is because most of the financing comes from venture-based investors who are looking for fairly high returns and quick returns. And so for the sector to mature, we need to expand the financing opportunities. Again, looking at how to de-risk these projects, how to make them more bankable. There was a topic brought up on insurance. Right now, large-scale forest restoration and conservation projects don't have access to fire insurance. This would be one mechanism that could help reduce overall risk. The other is on price stability. And so a carbon tax method could be one avenue to ensure that projects have long-term price stability and buyers for these credits. And so once that takes place, we're going to see a lot more traditional commercial banks like Mandiri. We've got Standard Chartered. And I think that's going to open up this sector to small and medium enterprises within the forestry sector. And once that happens, I think we're going to see the Indonesian forestry estate be protected and restored at a much faster rate. But the model is there. There's 500,000 hectares in Indonesia that have been protected and restored and generating millions of carbon credits annually. So it's proven to the market that it works. And now we need to scale that up with the support of the wider financial community.
Okay, thank you very much. Marjun, I'm going to have to ask you this question after the panel. I think we'll run out of time. If we can quickly, I just had a personal interest in China's investing in a record-breaking way in renewables, but it's also really scaling up with coal plants. Can you explain, from looking from the outside, what's happening there?
Yeah, put it into historic perspective. You know, when in our dealing with our air pollution, prior to that year, 2013, our coal consumption got tripled between 2000 to 2012, just that short period of time. But ever since then, it nearly got stabilized. So in some way, you know, we have made some progress, made contribution to the fighting against climate change. Still, we're burning half the world's coal. You know, our emission is about 30% of the global total. So it's still way too high. And now, how do we, you know, find ways to try to hasten the process? You know, originally we thought we can depend on some transitional energy sources like natural gas or shale gas. But then the geopolitical tension, pandemic, and turbulent global energy market make everyone to prioritize energy security, food security, and the supply chain security. So all of a sudden, every one of the decision maker try to ensure the energy security by authorize a whole series of coal power plants. You know, our idea, of course, is to try to see, you know, with a vast development, 42% of solar PV in the first 7 months. With that level of development, you know, our 2030 target will be achieved by 2025, no doubt about that. And EV. So with all of this, I hope that eventually all this new coal power plant could only serve as the backup. You know, they will run on very low operating hours. Of course, it means our transitional cost would be very high. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marjun. Thank you very much for that. Good to get a non-ASEAN perspective as well on this panel. Thank you very much, Alexandra, Natalia, Jeffrey, Dr. Marjun, and thank you very much to you for this very nice panel on green financing and carbon markets.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big round of applause to our moderator, Mr. Nick Marsh, and also to our esteemed speakers that was discussing for this panel in green financing and carbon market.